Okay, folks, it's about time to get started. I'm sorry for the short delay, but we'll blame it on Mark Hamilton's committee that met prior to us. And we had a little housekeeping stuff we had to take care of, and I want to commend the senators for working with us on that. It just makes us have one less vote. So I'm going to ask Representative Shaw, is he here? Would you open us with prayer, please? What number?
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we ask you, we come to you at this time. We're asking you to guide us with your grace and your wisdom and your mercy. We come to you and we humbly just ask you to lead us in the right direction as we do the people's business. And we ask you to just be with us and help us to do the job that you would be proud of. These things we ask in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. I guess we'll do it in order. Just for the senators, most of the rest of y'all have been in here on an insurance committee meeting before. When we meet with full committee, there's no testimony from the audience. This is strictly for the people who are presenting the bills, whether it's a senator or a House member or whatever. So that's the way we handle these full committees. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I think, Senator Golden, you've got Senate Bill 17, and we'll just start in order. And also, once you get finished with your presentation, identify who's going to carry the bill so everyone will know. And let's see if you're on.
See if that's on.
Try again.
Is that on?
That's on.
Good. Good job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Senate Bill 17 creates a special advisory commission to look into mandates. I've served here for a couple of decades now and been on the insurance committee since 1998 when I first got elected to the Senate. And even prior to that, when I was in the House for 8 years, mandates were coming before us constantly. And quite frankly, as a member of the committee looking at these mandates, as many as y'all have done in the past as well, it sort of struck me maybe we need a vehicle or a outlet to sort of vet these issues a little bit, sort of look at the medical efficacy of them, look at cost-benefit analysis. And I sort of thought about the Workers' Comp Advisory Council that's always worked so very well. You know, it has a wide range of people from doctors, lawyers, labor, et cetera, all in business. Everybody gets together and they work out the issues, sort of vet them thoroughly. And so I sort of started looking around, and I've sort of patterned this after Virginia that has a commission like this. And mine is, obviously, this bill is a little bit different than Virginia. No two states are alike. But what I came up with was it was not originally a 16-member commission. I started out, I think it was 12. We kept adding because they kept having requests, and I've tried to work with everyone. I will tell you the Cancer Society suggested some changes. I made that change. The Dental Association had asked for a change, which I granted. I can go through. There's several other folks have come to me, different groups, and I've tried to work with everyone to create now a 16-member commission. It's made up of people from hospitals. You can see in the bill what I've tried to do. It's got business folks, small business, got consumers. I've tried to think of everybody that has an interest in mandates. And what I'd like this commission to do is really just vet those issues and look at it for the medical efficacy of the bill, of the mandates. Do they work? Are they effective? Are the cost-benefit analysis worth doing them? And really just make recommendations to the General Assembly. Of course, obviously, the end result is it's up to the General Assembly. It's up to the House and Senate, the legislature, to decide if they want to vote for it or vote against one. And all this is basically a commission to look at these issues, and I think it would help give us the facts when we're trying to make these decisions. If you didn't know, mandates have a huge impact on the cost of insurance, and small business, they have to bear the burden of that. So I've worked very closely with NFIB and with the Georgia Chamber because of the cost of health insurance and the lack thereof. So that's really what I've tried to do. I've tried to be fair and balanced about this issue, tried to make sure every group's got a say in it, and even have House and Senate members. I got the insurance committee represented and Health and Human Services from both chambers, because I felt like that would be a way to have political influence, but not so much so because I have 12 other members that I hope bring some medical background, brings cost background, et cetera, to this issue. And, Mr. Chairman, that's sort of it in a nutshell, if you will. I'll be glad to try to entertain any questions.
Thank you, sir. Number 14, please identify yourself so the senator know who you are and ask your question.
Senator Golden, I'm Representative Carolyn Hughley from Columbus. I'd like to turn your attention to Section F at the top of page 3. If you would explain your intent with this portion, F1, does this mean that before a bill that has a mandate in it can go forward, it has to go through this process, and they have up to 6 months to review it? And so does this mean we'll have an automatic 2-year window for any bill that has a mandate, and will that mean that the bill will have to be introduced the first year of a legislative term?
Well, that's probably a pretty good summary of it. That's sort of my intent, was to take those issues and give this commission the time, because it's going to take some time to look at the medical side of it, look at the cost benefit. It's going to take a little bit of time to thoroughly vet this issue. So, I mean, that is correct. That is exactly my goal, is when a bill is introduced on a mandate, it would go to this commission. Commission would, as I said, vet the issue thoroughly, look at all the issues, and come back with their recommendations. Now, again, it would only be a recommendation. It's up to the General Assembly to decide whether they want to use it or not.
Mr. Chair, can I ask another question? The second part of that goes on to talk about the evaluations of all existing mandates that need to be done by December 13th of 2012. What type of reporting are you expecting to get back from that?
Well, again, I'll leave it to the commission to decide how they want to approach existing mandates. I really started out, I was thinking this ought to be for future mandates, and not look at, but then I got to thinking, if a current mandate is doing its job, is working, then why shouldn't we look at it? It ought to be able to stand on its merits. And I believe a lot of them would. I have no question, like children's wellness, I believe that's the kind of issue that's going to stand on its merits.
So is your intent then that the General Assembly can sunset something that this commission deems is not meeting?
Well, I believe the General Assembly can, pass any legislation that so desires.
And one final
so I'm
thing.
viewing this as really as a resource to help us make a wise, reasoned decision when we're looking at these issues.
One final thing, Mr. Chair, if I may. You said that you listened to a lot of voices and you got everybody covered in here. But I just wanted to put forth the concern that minority caucus members are not necessarily covered in here. And we have a dog in the fight as well.
Well, I understand. To be honest with you, Representative, it's gotten larger than I envisioned, and I don't want I don't want it too large, and that's been my concerns all along. If it gets too big, it'll be unwieldy. So, anyway, I hear you.
Thank
you. Does anyone else have a question for the senator?
Let me just ask a simple little question here. I see you've got the Commissioner of Labor and the Commissioner of Insurance ex officio, and then the Commissioner of Community Health. Just so you'll have some background on the health issues, or what was the reasoning there?
I figured that departments would not sure, labor necessarily, but I think I picked that up out of Virginia, quite frankly, out of their code. But they all do have sort of a stake in the fight, if you will. So that's why I felt they should be at the table.
Now, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And that's why I made them ex officio.
Okay. Now, how long has Virginia been researching theirs? Do you know how long?
I believe they passed theirs. I'd have to get the NFIB. The chairman asked me earlier, and I told him I'm sorry I couldn't remember. But I think they passed theirs in the early 90s.
And it's still going strong?
It's still going strong.
They seem to be using this.
Right. And I believe it came about because I'm a small business person looking at the cost of health insurance, and I think that's what motivated it from the beginning.
Okay.
Number 25.
Thank you. I'm Darlene Taylor from District 173, Thomas County. All right. I just had a couple of questions. I really see the merit of this. There are a lot of important mandates. One concern I have is sometimes you can't prove the value of them when you identify someone early because you have a mandate for screening. You've saved a big claim. There's lots of good things. So some of this is not going to be able to be concrete in facts and numbers. When I thought about that, I also thought, and do we have a amount which this would cost? Do we have a cost factor on what this commission would cost to operate?
Let me, the first part, the second part, they meet 5 times, and I sort of did the math, figuring if they got the per diem we did, that's about $13,000 a year, so I don't think the cost is really a big factor.
Great.
It didn't feel like it needed a fiscal note. To answer your first question, you know, most insurance companies now offer you an incentive to go for your wellness checkup. Many of them will pay you $50, $75, $100, $125. There's an incentive. Insurance companies recognize that preventative medicine works, wellness works. So getting a mammogram or a gentleman getting a blood test for PSA, they understand it works. So they will pay you and entice you to go get that checkup because they know it works. So I think those kind of things will stand on their own.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for bringing this because I think it is something important, and somebody with some background making some of these decisions will help. Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you.
Number 17.
I'm Keith Hurd, 1 District 114, Athens, Georgia. Senator, on Section 1, I noticed you said you want a physician who's is a specialist in chronic disease. Can you give me a little more insight on that? How would the person be chosen in chronic disease? There are a lot of chronic diseases out there.
Yeah, Representative Hurd, that's why I wore my bulldog tie. I knew you'd ask me a question. But,
I like the red and black.
That actually came from, I believe I'm correct, the Cancer Society wanted that language to make sure they had their representation.
But chronic disease doesn't necessarily mean cancer. It could be
No, but I believe, but it
hypertension,
covers a lot of people, right?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I think they thought that would cover them as well. And I didn't have a problem with that. It made sense to me.
Okay. And my second question, if I may, is to follow
Sure.
up with what Representative Hughley stated on, I guess, that last section of the bill on page 3, starting at line 63. Is there any other commission in state government that we have to go through and they have a final say-so, or not say-so, a recommendation before we can enact any piece of legislation?
Golly, Representative, I'd have to give that some thought. I'm not sure. More than likely there is, but I'm not sure on that. But, I mean, we do study commissions all the time. I mean, it's the same theory.
Yeah,
So,
but
I mean,
that's
there's no difference in
different
the theory.
than from saying we cannot introduce something until they have basically.
Well, we do that in retirement. I mean,
I'm speaking of other than retirement, though. Yeah.
Well, but it's still the same theory. The process in retirement works for that reason.
Well,
Of course, I
outside
knew at retirement, I'd let the House retirement chairman talk about the process, but we do that in retirement now.
But outside of retirement.
Well, I'd have to look and get back with you on that one.
Okay.
Number 15.
I think the question's been answered. I was concerned about the cost of this commission and how would it be impacted by cost.
Yes, I don't believe it'll be that significant. From just what I said, if you do the math on 5 meetings, do the per diem, I mean, it's no more than $13,000-14,000 a year.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's assuming every member attended every meeting.
Okay, I don't see any other question. And anybody have anything else they'd like to say as it relates to Senate Bill 17? Okay. Oh, hold on 1 second. Number 17.
I think it's a good bill, but I do have problems with that last section of the bill. I'll just perfectly be honest with you. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it. But I do have a problem with us. I think we should have a longitude and latitude to determine. If not, we want to go forth with legislation. Other than that, I think it's a good bill, but that's major for me, Mr. Chairman.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. This does not mandate that we do a, implement a new mandate or any of this kind of stuff just because the commission says so. It just provides us some expertise in evaluating particular mandates that may come up or mandates that we may currently have.
Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line is the Georgia legislature is going to make the ultimate decision whether we do away with an existing mandate or whether we add future mandates. That will be strictly up to the legislature.
Okay. Number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only concern here is that if there were a situation where we would need to do something within that 1-year window, we would need to have some mechanism where the committees can override this if necessary, rather than saying that the committee shall send it to this advisory committee before it reviews that legislation. That's my only concern.
Maybe I've been here a long time, but it seems like when somebody wants something done around here in the right position, it gets done.
Can't imagine what you're talking about. Does anyone else have any comment or question about this particular bill? Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? Okay, got a motion to do pass and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Who's going to, oh, am I carrying that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. Hopefully. Okay. All right. Now the next one we've got, I want to bring two senators up. We've got House Bill 58, Senate Bill 58, and also Senate Bill 155. And these two bills are basically kissing cousins. And the gentlemen have a, y'all don't sit too close. They have agreed to merge these two so that we'll have one bill to vote on instead of two. You should have been handed out a substitute to Senate Bill 58. It's LC 37-1219S. So I'm going to ask Senator Gooch, since his is the first part of that particular bill, so he can explain that, and then Senator Albers explain his portion of the bill, so we'll have an understanding of what this particular bill does. But it's 1219S.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, we appreciate your time today. You may recognize the wording in this bill similar to a House bill that passed your chambers this session. This is a bill very similar to that, except my bill makes the effective date retroactive to January 1st of this year. Go back about 6 or 8 weeks, you may remember a tragic accident that occurred right out here on Interstate 85 with one of our HERO units. The DOT employee was assisting a motorist, like they have many of us in the past, while the HERO unit, Mr. Spencer Pass, was out trying to protect the driver and the motorist. A vehicle struck his vehicle, pushing that HERO truck into the car, which ultimately struck him and fatally killed him. That person was buried a week later while we were all in session here. The timing on it wasn't planned, obviously, but we had planned this bill back in the early part of January. But as the law stands today, a highway employee, DOT employee, only gets $40,000 in case of a death, where a law enforcement officer or EMT or a firefighter killed in action would be paid $100,000 upon death. There's other benefits. If they're partially disabled, the increase is from $12,000 to $35,000 for the highway employee. And if there's permanent disability or partial permanent disability, then that payment goes from $25,000 to $75,000. We're not increasing the payments to the law enforcement, the EMTs, or the firefighters, or the prison guards. We're only going to bring the highway employees' payments up equal to those other people in public safety. So I ask for your support of this bill, and I think the gentleman to my left here, Mr. Albers, is going to talk about another portion to his bill that would affect this this DOT employee as well. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First, I'd like to state that I am nowhere related to Senator Gooch. My original Senate Bill 155, with your wisdom, has been merged into 58, is labeled the Jarrett Little Act. And this is for originally our public safety employees, now including our DOT employees, who have either lost their lives in duty or have severe brain damage. Today, they would receive from the State Indemnification Fund a lump sum payment up to $100,000 to take care of their dependents, which would be their spouse or their children. However, Jarrett Little being the firefighter this named after, we determined that not all of our folks that receive this are married. In fact, some do have other dependents, them being aging parents, or in some cases even a sibling who may not have a medical condition or something taken care of. So we have worked with the Department of Administration, who have given us their blessing to say that if they do not have a spouse or kids that this would go to, that if they had a dependent, I don't want to use that word carefully, dependent, parent or sibling, that the funds could be used for them should the need arise. As mentioned in the write-up for this committee, there is no additional cost to the state, and they do not believe it will have any impact on the fund as it is currently whole. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So you're saying that if they're not married, it will go to basically to the estate?
Only if they're a dependent.
Okay. Okay. Number 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just came from a transportation meeting where we had a hearing on a bill to rename an act. It had no effective law except just to rename it due to a tragedy that we had, and there was some feelings, some sentiment that we just can't name every bill after somebody, because while it being tragic, there's other things that other people who have suffered. And have you had any feedback on the naming portion of this bill, I guess is my question.
No, sir, not to my knowledge. In fact,
Okay.
Both of these bills passed the Senate unanimously. There was recognition given to the family, the Spencer Pass family, I think in the House and the Senate this past month. You may recall that, but this bill would be named the Spencer Pass Hero Memorial Act, but it wouldn't require any expenses from the state to change signs or do anything of that nature. It's just the name of the act. So we did it on behalf of all highway employees, but it's just the coincidence of it happening at the same time the bill was introduced, I think, warrants it being named in his honor for the service that he gave all of us as citizens and taxpayers of Georgia.
Chairman, not implying that not that this gentleman or their family is not deserving, but the feeling I think that was expressed today was that there are other cases that would be just as equally as deserving, and is this in any way not honoring them as much? I think that's the point that was expressed earlier today. And that's it.
Number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Upson, Sandy Springs. Senators, I just want to make sure about one thing. If I may invite your attention to Section 3 and the entire section, 73 through 78. Of course, we were sworn in, this legislature was sworn in January 10th, and we're asking January 1st, but from what you're saying on lines 76 through 78, we do have the authority to go back to January 1st under the Constitution. Forgive me,
Yes, sir. That's correct. I've double-checked that.
Thank you.
Legal counsel, and I even looked it up myself on the internet.
So we're covered.
Constitution. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okay, 25.
Just had a couple quick questions. Is this in lieu of any workers' compensation benefits?
There are workers'
Separate.
compensation benefits that apply to this, but this is out of the indemnification fund.
Okay.
That the governor and the other people of DOAS monitor and implement.
Also, I want to make sure this applies only to our state employees. It would not go to any private contractors that are doing road work.
No private contractors. In fact, it doesn't apply to all DOT employees.
Right.
Only employees who work in the field doing construction-related work or maintenance-related work.
Okay, that's
An
what I
employee
wanted to make sure of.
Yes, ma'am. An employee like, for example, the commissioner may or may not apply to this. If he's out in the job, in the roadway, doing work, then he may apply. But an employee, let's say an administrative assistant who stays at a desk 8 hours a day, this would not apply to him or her, only if they work out in the field. And they would have to be at work in the job on the roadway and when they're injured or killed. So
thank you.
You bet.
This could, in fact, apply to other people throughout our state, and one of the reasons that this was originally put together a long time ago was because most of the folks who volunteer in public safety are just that. They're volunteers who have very little income, and this was something to help take care of them and their families at a point of tragedy when they were serving in the line of duty.
Number 21.
That's me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Senator Albers, I've got a question on your bill, if you don't mind, sir. I'm having trouble understanding, I guess, line 35 on the original bill, and it's line 61 through 63 of the combined bills. For the purposes of this paragraph, the term dependent shall have such meaning as shall be established by the Rules and Regulations Department subject to the approval of the Commission. Well, what are we saying here? Why we've got pretty much 3 areas over here on who we're going to give the money to, the deceased spouse, or what are we trying to accomplish there?
Well, we don't, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman. We do not want to give the funds out unless someone truly has a dependent. It's made for a very specific purpose. It's not made to be a life insurance policy. It's made to take care of their dependents. So if they have a spouse or a child that is, in fact, a dependent automatically, not everyone would claim on their taxes a dependent for a sibling or a parent just because they wouldn't have the sheer knowledge to do that. What this does, it brings back to the Department of Administration on a case-by-case basis to evaluate it to see if they actually had a sibling or a parent as a dependent to make sure that if they're going to give those dollars that it's warranted. Otherwise, it could open it up and there would be a fiscal note on this bill and it could cause the state more money than is currently funded.
And that's exactly the opposite of what I was thinking this was doing. So you're saying this is trying to tighten it. It looked to me like we were out turning every rock and stone over trying to find somebody to give the money to.
Yes, sir.
That's not what we're doing.
No.
Okay. All right. I won't trust you on that, brother.
Thanks, sir.
Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question to the authors. Is this act going to be named for both of these persons? It says or.
Actually, both, and thank you to the wisdom of the chairman that he elected to put these together and combine these two. Otherwise, whatever the governor had signed last, the act would have been named for. This way it can honor both the individuals involved in this act.
So we accomplished that with the word or as opposed to and?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions on substitute to Senate Bill 58, LC 371219S? Appropriate time.
Mr. Chairman, I move due pass of the committee substitute to Senate Bill 58, LC 371219S.
Do I hear a second? Okay, got it. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay, Senate Bill 203 has been delayed. The senator came by to see me. He's out of town with the rules chairman, so we let that ride. We'll meet again next week because we have about 3 or 4 more bills to address. We only have 2 bills left, and Senator Schaefer. Do pass. That's right. You must have something on these people up here.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Senate Bill 251 is an insurance department bill. that moves the state to a biennial system of licensing instead of annual system of licensing. It is identical to the bill that Representative Shaw authored and that your committee approved and that was passed by the House on the 30th day. It is probably not necessary for you to act on it because it's my intent to put all of my energy toward passing Representative Shaw's bill, but you never know what might happen.
Just in case.
You might consider recommending it.
Okay, well, anyone have a question on Senate Bill 251? Okay, we got a motion to pass. Do I hear a second? All right, all in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, I guess you and Representative Shaw can get together and get this worked out between the two houses. Okay, Senate Bill 252.
Senate Bill 252 is a bill that is needed to bring Georgia's reinsurance laws in compliance with the Frank-Dodd Act. It simply allows the insurance commissioner to notate on a reinsurer's certificate of authority that it is in fact a reinsurer, and it's my understanding that that will prevent the reinsurers from being regulated by the federal government as opposed to the state government. It's been supported. It's supported by the insurance commissioner, and it passed the Senate unanimously. And I would ask your consideration of it.
Okay, Chairman Maxwell.
I got a little bill over in the Senate that does some stuff with some regulation. Also, if we run into a little problem over there, would you be amenable to my adding my bill onto yours if it would fit?
I'd be, I mean, I don't know what your bill does, but I'd be amenable to any suggestion that you would make.
I just want to see how easy that bill will flow in the Senate over there before we move too far down the road with this one, maybe. But I'll work with our Ron over there to see if there's going to be a problem on it. Thank you, Senator.
Are there any other questions for the Senator on Senate Bill 252? Well, now's the appropriate time. Do pass on 252. Do I hear a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Our Senate Bill 252 passed. And who's carrying that bill?
I have not asked anyone. If the chairman wants to designate someone, or maybe Representative Holt will carry it.
You want to carry it? Yeah, I'll be glad to carry it.
Okay. Chairman Maxwell will carry it. Okay. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order here? Okay. Well, meeting's adjourned. Thank y'all.